There's been a break-in at Democratic headquarters, and they were bugging the place.
Woodward, Bernstein, you're both on the story now. Don't get up.
Redford.
I'm Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. Mr. Markham, are you here in connection with the Watergate burglary?
I'm not here.
Hoffman.
Hi, this is Carl Bernstein of the Washington Post, and I was just wondering if you can remember...
All the President's Men. The story of the two young reporters who cracked the Watergate conspiracy.
White House.
Howard Hunt, please.
He might be in Mr. Colson's office.
Who's Charles Colson? Did you know, Howard Hunt?
Well, the White House said he was doing some investigative work.
What do you say?
They stumbled into leads.
Certainly it comes as no surprise to you that Howard was with the CIA.
No surprise at all.
They tripped over clues.
We'd like to see all the material requested by the White House.
All White House transactions are confidential.
This whole thing is a cover-up. It's right on our nose.
And piece by piece, they solve the greatest detective story in American history.
There is no way the White House can control the investigation.
I don't want to say any more, okay?
Have you been threatened if you tell the truth?
Is there a cover-up?
Don't you understand what you're on to?
Mitchell knew.
Of course, Mitchell knew.
Woodward! Bernstein! Get in here!
At times, it looked as if it might cost them their jobs.
You guys are about to write a story that says the former Attorney General, the highest-ranking law enforcement officer in this country, is a crook.
Their reputations.
Why is the Post trying to do it? I don't know.
Perhaps even their lives.
Hello, it's the end of the month, it's film club time, and to celebrate the end of a presidential election, it's All the President's Men, starring Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. Links are in the show notes, including your chance to vote on our next movie via our Twitter poll. Oliver Stone's Salvador, Apocalypse Now, or The Third Man are the choices for December, but until then it's Roger, Tim and me discussing All the President's Men. Roger, Tim, welcome to this month's film club, which is in recognition, if not celebration, of the election that we had over the pond in America, the presidential election, which was won very convincingly by Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad we picked this. Actually, we showed great foresight.
Was that actually foresight, Ollie? Did you do that? I mean,
we agreed after we discussed the film Alexander. So, listeners, if you haven't heard that one, go back and listen. We don't only pick films we love. We pick films that are also panned. But at the end of that episode, we agreed on All the President's Men, and then we had the election. And again, listeners,
it just so happens we chose All the President's Men because I think you saw that I was watching it on my Instagram feed.
Yes, that's it.
And you went, "Oh, we got to do that."
But but that was showing great foresight in the knowledge that there would be. I was aware there was an American election going on, and
I'm glad.
But for listeners' benefit, I don't know if any of you had to endure the coverage in Britain, in this country, of the election, which was shockingly bad, and the only people speaking any sense was one historian, Dominic Sambrook.
Yes,
who
covered
we had to listen to
glory.
A succession of people who are so-called experts in politics getting it completely wrong. So Roger and Tim are both people, I think, who certainly have as much insight to bring not only to the current presidential election, but also the Watergate drama, which is the subject of All the President's Men.
Well, what a wonderful introduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your confidence.
Yes, thank you for the confidence. Let's hope it's not unfounded.
Well, I think it just proves that anyone can spout knowledge on politics, really, to be honest.
Yeah, well, if Alistair Campbell's still in a job, then
yes.
It's hope for everybody.
It certainly is. Yes, the amount of blood on his hands, amazing.
Exactly.
Right, moving on. So, All the President's Men, directed by Alan J. Pakula, and this is starring Dustin Hoffman and a very gorgeous-looking Robert Redford, and Jason Robards, as well as a number of others. I think Hal
Holbrook.
Yeah.
Holbrook. Yeah.
Any others, Tim?
Jack Warden, great.
Does he play the sort of deputy editor? Yeah.
Feisty.
Yes.
Feisty one.
Yeah, he's great. And this is all about obviously the Watergate scandal, the political scandal, which was under President Nixon's administration, and it's a thriller, certainly a thriller. But so I'm going to lay my cards on the table, having rewatched it. So that would probably make it third or fourth time. And I just think the two leads are so good that they take me along, and with Robards, I just really enjoy it. I did find it quite thrilling as well, actually, for a scandal that is not that thrilling when you look at it on paper. But Roger,
it's one of those. It's one of those.
So
films
Tim,
that should...
dive in, Tim. Then Roger can.
I just wanted to add to the fact that it's thrilling. It should be boring. If you think about the amount of scenes that are really just people talking in a room. They said that about Oppenheimer, JFK, but somehow these films are thrilling. I guess because of the circumstances and the fact that you're taken on a subjective viewpoint into this investigation that has essentially the highest stakes possible, at least for the characters. And I can't agree with you more. I think the two leads are, they're sort of masterclasses in realism, in the way they just back and forth these things, all the little clues that they're coming up with, and the fact that suddenly there's a moment of realization, and they sort of stutter their way through a lot of it. One scene in particular that I think I watched it a while ago just because I was watching it again, and then we decided to do this, and so I watched it again a couple of nights ago, and I just keep rewinding. I watch this one scene over and over again because I love the way Pakula directs this so simply. There's no sort of fanciful camera moves. There's no fanciful blocking. It almost just sticks the camera and doesn't really move it that much. And that's the scene where Hoffman comes back to Redford's apartment after Dustin Hoffman has interviewed the woman and said, "Look, if I give you the initials of the people, will you just confirm?" And he comes back to Redford's, and Redford starts typing, and he's like, "Who's L? Who could it?" That scene is so brilliant, I think, that I just kept rewinding it and watching them and seeing how they have this such a realistic habit of. He does it on more than one occasion. Redford asks a question, but it sort of gets slightly. It's not ignored, but it's because they're talking so quickly. It sort of gets a little bit run over, and then. It's almost like Redford remembers that he's asked that question and hasn't had an answer, and he comes back to it later and goes, what was that again? And it's so real that it's, I think and I'm astounded that they didn't get nominations. I think Redford is particularly brilliant. I think Dustin Hoffman's always very, he's kind of the method, one of the method icons, from the 70s, but I think Redford's a bit overlooked because I think even when he's on the phone in close-up that doesn't ever budge to numerous different people, and look at the sincerity in his eyes, the way he's actually genuinely listening to what potential answer could come at the other end. I think he's so good at that, and I can't believe he's only been nominated once for an acting award, which is The Sting, which is one of my favorite films, but slightly different.
Is this the curse of being pretty, do you think, Tim?
It may be. I think he genuinely is actually an example of that. I think that, the 70s...
I meant it seriously.
I genuinely do think it's a bit of a... You could argue that Brad Pitt has a similar issue. Whether it's an issue, I don't know.
It's a nice problem to have.
I think there are some benefits to be had as well.
This is your problem. You're just too good looking. But I think it may be because he's done roles in the past where he's tried. I don't know whether he's tried consciously to get away from that, but there are some things. Jeremiah Johnson is one film that comes to mind where he's sort of a rugged, bearded I don't know. I
Is that
think
the one that's the meme where he turns around and smiles and goes like that?
I think
He's wearing a buckskin jacket.
I think it is.
Yes, I think it is. You're right.
Okay. Yeah, people put that on their social media when they pleasingly agree with someone.
Yeah,
I think, but the thing is that I think people forget that he was, along with Newman, they were both brilliant performances in Butch Cassidy.
I love that film.
He's just very good looking. Is an issue, and I think this was, I genuinely think this was one of his best performances.
I mean, he is so good looking that he makes Paul Newman look quite ugly, and
which is saying something because Paul
Newman's a handsome man,
seriously attractive.
Well, Roger, come on then. You may as well bring us down.
Well, look, I agree with an awful lot of what's been said, particularly about those two central performances, which were brilliant. In a way, I think they almost obscure everything else of the film. I think, like when I watched it and then I sort of looked back at, Googled it and looked at, what the Oscars were that year and so on. And I saw Jason Robards got the Oscar for supporting actor. And I kind of went, what? Like, who? And had to kind of double check like who he'd played. Oh yeah, him. Okay. And then I thought, wow, I mean, completely, all of the supporting cast, with the exception of Hal Holbrook's Deep Throat, which is because it's kind of a weird, it's a weird situation that they have this, chap in half shadow in an underground car park that they get information from. So that kind of sticks in the mind. But almost everything else, with the exception of the two central characters, sort of disappeared for me into a sort of a mass of, ticking typing machines, typewriters, and the general hubbub of the newsroom, and like you said, it should be boring. Yeah, there were parts of that I thought actually were pretty boring. It didn't set me alight. Those two characters, brilliant, really, really well done. And I tried to work out what it was, and I actually, my first thought, and I sort of stick by that, is that I think Watergate in 1976 had a sort of such an immediate resonance and immediacy for particularly for an American audience, but even for a worldwide audience, because of the prominence of, obviously US president being toppled by that in 74. In a sense, everybody was primed to want to know more about it, to delve into it, to experience the thrill of that investigation. And it is very well done. I just think now, looking at it, I mean, I hadn't watched it before, so this is the first time I'd seen it. And I think that we know Watergate is kind of shorthand for government cover-up and government crisis and so on. But beyond that, I don't think that a modern audience has that same immediacy, and doesn't have the same, granular resonance. So I think a lot of that sort of stuff gets a bit lost. So where they would drop a name, or there'd be a mention. In 1976, when the film came out, it had an immediate resonance, and the audience would be going, "Oh, it's that." Now that's lost. It's gone in the intervening nearly 50 years.
Yeah, I think an example that you're talking about there is like the power and prominence of newspapers, which I don't.
Yeah, is another thing. Absolutely,
the Washington
right.
Post and the editor of the Washington Post was a household name, Ben Bradley. Everyone knew.
Yeah.
Who could you tell me who the editor of the Washington Post is now?
Not a clue. But no, you're absolutely right. But
no, this is when journalism was proper journalism.
Yeah,
everyone wore ties. It was
didn't just get your stories from social media.
No,
exactly,
it was probably proofread. I think that the procedure was insanely detailed back then.
Yeah. And that does come across. It comes across
when
really
they're checking confirmation of...
They're constantly checking sources. And that's Jason Robards' character. Essentially, he goes around, most of the film saying, where's the story? Where's the story? Because he where's the confirmation of this? What's the source?
Yeah.
Now
and his frustration is
his
quite
frustration,
apparent.
exactly. But, I mean, this is, when I read that, I thought, really? Like, that's... I mean, it was... Yeah, I said that. I mean, apart from the central two characters, everything else to me was more or less, pretty forgettable. And that's what I thought. Really, you got a supporting actor Oscar for that?
I think he's excellent because Jason Robards, though, is always excellent.
Right.
But I do think
I'm not saying he wasn't any good, but
I think it may have been a bit of a sympathy Oscar.
Yeah,
because he should have got the Oscar for Once Upon a Time in the West, shouldn't he? No, I'm serious. He was brilliant in that.
Yeah, he's very good.
And he had fallen on hard times. I remember.
Had he?
Yes, he was an alcoholic and was.
And he
was sort of rescued. He was rescued by Robert Redford, effectively.
He's got a voice like treacle in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know. I mean, it's a good performance, but I didn't see. I didn't see an Oscar in that performance. Put it that way.
No, I sort of agree with you. I do agree to a certain extent about. I can see why it would be quite tedious for a lot of viewers. I saw it.
Tedious
when I was
is a strong word, Tim. I wouldn't go with tedious. I know I said it. I think I used the B word for boring.
Bit boring, but I can understand because I watched it for the first time when I was way too young, and I thought this is dull as dull. The thing is that I do think that it's one of those films that once you've got it all, the history, all the facts, I know this shouldn't be the way a film should work, but once you've done all that and you've admired the performances and then you watch it again, knowing really what all the facts are in place and just enjoy it for, I want to say, the ride.
Yeah.
I do think it gets better and better with repeated
I can see that. I think that's quite possible. My point, I suppose, is that maybe it's also the sort of the way films were made 50 years ago, the way they were, the way the script writing went or whatever. But I think a modern retake of that, even within the same parameters, where you just look at the investigation, you just look at the two journalists, their center stage. I think even with that, a modern remake would sort of would be able to bring out more drama, more sort of pathos.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because
more tension.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because I actually sometimes, and on repeated viewings, I actually forget some of the facts of exactly what happened, and so I find myself actually a little bit more on the edge of my seat again. But I do think that I sort of agree with the whole 70s, the actual real life significance of it and the difference it would make now. But I do also draw I think that audiences that haven't seen it, who are into the current state of whatever administration, media in general, I think would go, nothing's changed.
I'm very glad you mentioned that, Tim, because I was thinking from what you were just saying, Roger, about, if you were to make a film like this now, if you look at what actually it was, people often say about Watergate, oh, well, it was the cover up that was the problem. What he did wasn't bad. Well, it was pretty bad.
No, what he did was bad.
Yeah. Bugging the Democrat headquarters is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'll put a link in for listeners to another podcast, fairly well known, called The Rest is History, which has a 2-part series on the Watergate scandal, which probably everyone's listened to a lot more than they listen to this podcast. But the plumbers, who were these fixers that Nixon indirectly employed to cause trouble for the Democrats, some of their capers that they got up to are very funny. And it is quite comedic when you look back to it. And maybe I'm just a bit too swung by Dominic Sandbrook's telling of the story. But, they order things.
A lot of them are Cubans, Cuban Americans, weren't they?
In the break-in, yeah. But some of the fixes, some of the plans that they had involved ordering 1,000 pizzas to the Democrat Party headquarters. and then in Miami hiring a boat and then the hottest prostitutes in Miami on the to get them on the boat and then entice Democrat officials to the boat to try and there's a honey trap, and this stuff's brilliant. It's hilarious. But then if you go and obviously Woodward and Bernstein, they follow the money, and that's where the scandal is, and that's how they get the names out. But if you fast forward it to today, I mean, if Trump were to be exposed for having done that, would he even have got to the stage of a vote
probably
for
not.
impeachment?
No,
Probably
because a big part of Trump's whole shtick is that he sort of doesn't care. Like he's very willing just to piss people off.
Well, the 6th of January, which I would suggest, regardless of what you think about Trump in this country, I think certainly in this country, in Britain, 6th of January is pretty bad.
Yeah, it is.
And he didn't even get impeached for that.
Yeah.
So Tricky Dicky was going to be impeached. He knew the writing was on the wall, so he resigned before.
The thing is that Nixon was, Nixon desperately tried, and the White House desperately tried to, immediately tried to try to cover it up.
Yeah.
I believe as soon as they were arrested, as soon as they foiled the burglary, the difference between now and then, I guess, is, Trump would probably come out immediately and say, I didn't do anything. I knew nothing about this. And in fact, whether he would actually try and be involved in any cover-up, who knows? It would probably, I don't know whether he would even bother. I think that the remarkable thing about the film is, in my opinion, the remarkable thing about the film is that it doesn't have opinion.
No, that's true.
It doesn't try to say what's right, what's wrong.
Yes.
It simply tries to.
Woodward says I'm a Republican too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
and we haven't mentioned the brilliance in their performances is that they sort of rub each other up the wrong way, but they don't.
I absolutely get that.
They don't really. It doesn't. They don't push that.
No,
it's very subtle. It's very subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah.
It's little quips like "There's any place you don't smoke," in the lift.
Dustin Hoffman smoking was one of the leitmotifs that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And when he says "I'm a Republican," and Hoffman just gives him a look, he doesn't say anything.
Yeah,
it's like, so good. But what I think is great is that their teamwork is fantastic.
Yes. I did a bit of homework here, Tim. On that very point, Carl Bernstein, the real Carl Bernstein, who's played by Dustin Hoffman. That point you just made, the look he gives him when he says "I'm a Republican," when Bob Woodward says "I'm a Republican." Bernstein's parents were both communists, right? They were members of the American Communist Party, right? This is why he's left and Woodward's right, and you're absolutely right. So they're coming at each other kind of almost daggers drawn at the beginning. There's a lot of suspicion. Why the hell am I being paired with you? Both of them, ambitious and want to get on, a lot of it's very subtle, but a lot of the sort of drama within it is from how the chemistry between them, how they rub each other up the wrong way. Yeah,
brilliant little. But because at the same time they work so well together. They sort of pick up on the ploys they're using to coax the confessions out of people.
Yeah,
they sort of back each other up. But there are little things that they sort of meld on the one hand so well together. But then there are little different. I love the little differences, like when they're really both excited in that scene I mentioned earlier, and Redford's typing away, and he's like, "Why do you think it's Magruder?" And then Hoffman gets a cookie and throws him a cookie, and he's like, "I don't want a cookie." It's sort of like little details that probably one wouldn't necessarily think of, which I do also think is down to William. We haven't mentioned William Goldman, who wrote the script.
Yeah. Because the script apparently went through. I mean, they always do, but it went through a lot of reworking. It was originally discarded and was redone a lot. So I think they.
You can see
a lot of attention to that.
How daunting it would be for a studio. To see, this would probably have been one of those scripts where they call there is a lot of black ink on the page.
Yeah.
Redford, he doesn't get a producing credit, but it does appear as though, it's very much his.
It was very much his baby. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, and what you said earlier on about it not taking a position, I think it's very true. That again, I mean, I saw an interview with Redford where he talked about that. He said if you just made it sort of, hammering Nixon, then half the audience would switch off and wouldn't want to watch it. So he said it had to be about the investigation. It had to be, in a sense, sort of politically neutral.
Yeah.
And I thought, in that he was absolutely right. And that does that, and it takes you away. Nixon is, does he even appear until right at the end?
He doesn't. But what I love about it is that he's a looming presence when you get a shot of the White House.
Yeah.
You can almost see him. Again, I'm going to hark back to Dominic Sandbrook's brilliant telling of the story in the Rest is History episodes. And he's this sort of looming presence in, you can see him picture him in the Oval Office at sort of 3 a.m., sweating and filled with self-pity.
Jowly.
Wondering why everyone is against him.
Yeah.
Looking at his list of bad people that he had.
I've got one of those, haven't you?
And it's interesting that it sort of ends before anything is, all those repercussions that it created.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting because there's some questioning over whether Woodward and Bernstein are the ones really responsible for the downfall of Nixon.
Well, I mean, they were, they were essentially the catalyst. They surely were the
catalyst at least, yeah. And then you're putting that information into the public domain, and then it's for other politicians to deal with it. I mean, that's so. Yeah, you're right. It's the political process, and it's others that ultimately bring him down. But the information was provided by Woodward and Bernstein.
I actually felt quite sorry for them when they go to print. And then the morning after, there's the repercussions of they're all watching television, I think. The lawyer, I think it's the lawyer who's saying this is not true. This is all this is all lies. Yeah. And it's sort of the first. It's when you consider. This is when I thought to myself, oh, imagine today where it's just shoddy, entirely subjective journalism in the modern day. That I wonder what the reactions would be from journalists watching that today. Would probably be like, oh well, of course he was going to say that, but when you watch this, you're genuinely I felt so sorry for them because the work and the sincerity that they put into it, and the frustration and the fact that no one's talking and the fact that their editor is saying, not just saying, he's kind of yelling, get better sources next time.
Where's the story?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it should be a film that journalist students should watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Study.
Yeah, this is how it was back in the day. No, I think so, and you can see that comes through. Their unwavering sort of desire to get to the truth of this.
And we haven't mentioned, some of the cameos like Ned Beatty, the scene with Ned Beatty where Hoffman goes to see him. That is a prime example of true journalistic determination and frustration. And, I'm going to do anything I can to get even the smallest smidgen of information from these people.
Yeah.
Most of us would go, oh, he's busy. Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Particularly in this country, we'd be like,
I'll send an email. That's true.
Ned Beatty's fantastic little cameo there.
Yeah. Interesting to see if that's factually true. In fact,
let me throw something at you. And I was looking at doing my homework on this, and I looked at other reviews of it, both contemporary and later. And I mean, as you'd imagine, a lot of them are extremely positive, particularly at the time. One sort of post facto review or sort of retrospective review, which came out, I think, in the 90s. So someone's sort of done a short review, which crystallized a lot of the thoughts that I'd had from watching the film. And it described it as pedestrian, which I think is a bit harsh. I wouldn't go with pedestrian. That's harsh. But it does say degenerates into confusion and repetition, which I thought, I think it does. I'm taking nothing away from those two performances, which I think are brilliant. And then it said, unable or unwilling to impose any dramatic shape on the material. And this is kind of where I was getting to, that I think they were going for and they've said so, they were going for almost a sort of quasi-documentary style. And it has, in a sense, all the chaos of almost of everyday life. It has that, you used the word earlier on, Tim, realism. It is extremely realistic. And in the process, I think, it's almost like the viewer, I don't know, you sort of lose. I lost track in a few places. And what's going on here? What's the significance of this? And you could say it's because the process of that investigation, the characters involved, are no longer familiar to us in the way that they were in 1976. They're not now. You could also say, well, that's down to they needed to, or for it to have a modern, the same resonance now in 2024 that it had in 1976. It needs to be a bit more kind of moments of exposition, which maybe it lacks because everything was so familiar in 1976.
I thought whilst I was watching it was that if you were to have a similar investigation now, it would be so faster because you would have the internet, the Wikipedia.
Yeah.
You would solve it in like 2 days.
I mean, that's a lesson. So we'll cut. Sorry, I know I've asked a question, and I'll come back to you in a minute, Tim. But just on that, the fact that to track someone down, he had to go through like 23 phone books.
You'd fly to Miami.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was another world.
Exactly. One example, actually, what you were saying, Roger, of how I mean, and this is something I remember because it's something that I felt. Probably every time I've watched it, is when leading up to Ned Beatty's scene is how he finds out about him, because he's sitting on a park bench with this lawyer, and the lawyer just rattles off, in fact, sometimes inaudibly, some names. He was investigating that. He put him in charge of that and him in charge of that. And you're like, so when he gets to Ned Beatty, I actually remember thinking, who's this guy? How did we get here? But I think if you can manage just to, you go, okay, the actual ins and outs and every single person's name and every little detail and their role and job title,
let it go.
Just forget it. Just keep going, because you get the essence. And because of the determination, I guess. But it is interesting that, of course, it's a film where the two leads, who are pretty much in the film, I would say,
all the way through,
every single scene.
Every scene,
we know nothing about their wives, girlfriends. In a film maybe made today, they'd go, okay, look.
There'd be a nod to character, wouldn't there?
Family?
Oh God, but I don't like that.
Neither do I.
Less.
I don't either. In fact, in screenwriting, they go, well, what's the driving force? Yes, his job, but then there needs to be the subplot. There's the B story, they call it in film. And sometimes I go, I couldn't give a shit about the B story. Cut it. Jim Garrison's wife. I fast forward those bits in JFK now. I'm like, I don't care. I get that his job is taking its toll on the family, but don't care. So, in an equivalent film maybe today that I thought was excellent and won Best Picture was Spotlight. I don't know if you guys have seen.
Yeah,
that's excellent.
A great film, actually, for the podcast. Kind of is similar along the same kind of lines, where there's no real B story. It's purely the investigation, and it sucks you. It's another film that technically should be boring, and I kind of think of it along the same lines. It doesn't need this extra weight other than simply the plot.
Hello, Ollie here. Please forgive my interruption, but I wanted to let you know that at Aspects of History, we produce a digital magazine featuring articles, interviews, short stories and book reviews of the best historical writing available. Authors featured including Ben Macintyre, Lucy Worsley, Andrew Roberts and plenty more. An annual subscription is available for only $9.99, that's pounds or dollars. Yep, you heard that right. That's 6 issues for under £10 or dollars. Head over to aspectsofhistory.com to subscribe, where you can also gift subscriptions since Christmas is coming. Now back to the show.
I think when we talk about those sorts of films, you'd say, it was tight, it was sort of claustrophobic, and we sort of appreciate those films where that B story is minimal, if not absent entirely. I see exactly what you mean. I still think that this film, to my 2024 mind, it needed a bit of pruning. It needed a bit more exposition. Not necessarily B story, but just to sort of to keep the viewer, on the track, as it were.
Yeah, interesting you use the word exposition, because when you actually, if you were to read it, but actually if you watch it, perhaps again, there is what you would technically call a hell of a lot of exposition,
right,
from simply just facts being thrown at you.
Yeah, but very subtle.
Yeah. And the thing is there's one thing that I would say that is a little bit frustrating, and I'm pretty sure that Bob Woodward found it very frustrating as well, is Deep Throat.
Yeah.
Hal Holbrook's character. It's like, just stop being so bloody cryptic.
And that's actually factually, I think he was being cryptic, but apparently the White House knew full well that Mark Felt, who is Deep Throat, was releasing all this information. They knew.
Right.
And they let him do it anyway, because I think, you know, how could they stop him?
I found it a little bit of a writing ploy, is the repetitive lines of, I'll let you find that out for yourself. And it's like, stop. No, just tell me.
That
the plant pot on the balcony and all that kind of...
That did frustrate me.
Really?
I mean, the whole thing of, the man half in shadow in the basement car park, talking in riddles.
Well, that's Gordon Willis, who we haven't mentioned either, the director of photography, who did all the Godfather films. Was known as the Prince of Darkness, was his nickname.
Right. Okay. Well, we got that in spades.
The big surprise when he did Woody Allen's first film, Annie Hall, where Diane Keaton had worked with him in The Godfather, said, "I can't believe the Prince of Darkness is doing a Woody Allen film." And then went on to do loads of Woody Allen films. So
this was something I did notice, because much of the film is shot there's always at night time, apart from the bits in Miami, I think. It seems to be at night the whole time. All the meetings are at night. Yeah.
And you see them there's the guy, what was the character's name? Guys whose wife's having a baby.
Sloane.
When they go visit him the second time and they're in the corridor and it's pitch black, except for I think it's probably the kitchen light is on and the corridor's pitch black, and they so synchronizingly perfectly walk into the light, but cast in deep shadow. That's very Gordon Willis.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, let's just do a few of the facts on the movie, which it cost $8.5 million to make, which doesn't seem... I mean, I guess you can see why. It made nearly $71 million in the box office. So it came out in April 1976. So that's about 6 months before Gerald Ford lost to Jimmy Carter in the 1976 election.
Yeah.
Pardoned Nixon.
He did. He did.
Pardoned Nixon.
Yeah. Hugely successful. In the Oscars, though, it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director. No actor awards for our two heroes, but you've already mentioned that Jason Robards won for Best Supporting, and Jane Alexander was nominated for Best Supporting Actress, but lost out.
She was the one that Bernstein goes to see a couple of times. She's the bookkeeper.
There were lots of stuff I'm very keen on getting a corduroy suit now.
I agree. This sort of film makes you go, I wish you should dress like a bit better now. And just
can't we have wider lapels? Can't we bring that back?
Yeah. And longer collars on the shirts.
You know, at home, surrounded by books in the dark. Well, I don't know, Roger. Could you maybe?
You can. Yeah.
You
look behind
me. Do you, when you're late at night with one lamp on?
Yeah.
Sprawled, are you still wearing your tie? And
and I'm aggressively smoking.
So let's do let's start with our best scenes. So I didn't have that many actually. So
no, that's another thing. I mean, the way the film was made, there were none of they weren't set pieces in the way that a film now 2024, rightly or wrongly, but there's no real set pieces in this, were there?
No, I think my favorite is when you see the two together in the office when they're kind of like rutting stags right at the beginning, where Bernstein rewrites Woodward's copy, and
which sets the relationship immediately, very succinctly.
Woodward grudgingly accepts that his version is better, and I just like the two. That's where you get two great actors just working really well together. And then I think, unlike you, Roger, I just thought anything with Jason Robards, where he's obviously been whining and dining amongst because he was friends with Jack Kennedy, and he clearly moves in those circles, appearing.
And we haven't mentioned that this is, you could call this a direct sequel to Steven Spielberg's The Post with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks plays Ben Bradley, and The Post ends. Its final scene is the opening of this film.
Yeah,
with
the Pentagon Papers.
Yeah, yes, the Pentagon Papers, and it. So, in fact, this would be a great film to watch.
Well, there are a number of films that would go well with
immediately.
this. I think Oliver Stone's Nixon would go well with this.
Yeah,
because you get to see it from the White House,
Yeah,
what's going on
that's true.
from within the Oval Office, and then also I think Network would be quite good because
It's great. Great film.
Yeah, Network, you get, the sort of cynicism. This is quite an idealistic film, I think we could probably accept. Journalists are all, in searching for truth.
Yeah.
Whereas Network is a little bit different.
I would agree with I like Jason Robards as well. For me, my favorite scene is when they're together in Redford's apartment, just doing that back and forth. What's L? What's M? What's P? P's Porter. Yeah. No, and then the way Redford goes, I'll tell you what we'll do. And the way he's thinking, it's almost like it's either a great trick that an actor has to make it look like you're really thinking through a problem, or he's actually thinking through the problem, because the way he comes up with I'll tell you what I will do. Well, you say who's P, and I'll say no. We know P is Porter, and it's so clear that Redford's actually working this problem out.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene.
Great.
Tell you what sticks in my mind was again, it's Redford, but it's that scene where he's going through the phone books to find whoever it was that was in Minnesota, I think it was. And he had, as I said, he had to go through 25 phone books to find that one name, and then there's a long scene where he's on the phone to I think various people, but it's very close in. You mentioned it earlier on, Tim. He's very close in, and I imagine. I mean, I'm not an actor, and I'm not the sort of person that ever wants to be an actor, but I imagine having that camera right in your face. It's a very unforgiving place. And it's entirely believable.
Yes, I agree. Actually, I would say that, in fact, that's probably my second favorite. It's because also Redford slips up a couple of times because there's no cut, but he masks it and does it so well.
Yeah.
There's one where he's on the phone and there's the guy, he doesn't speak English and he's speaking Spanish, and he's like, do you speak? And he says, and then he covers the phone with his hand. He goes, does anybody speak English? Spanish. And
that's excellent.
And that's a genuine slip up. And then the other one is he calls someone. He's on the phone because he's back and forth between two people, and he says, "I'm so sorry. Can you hold?" And he goes to the other line. He says, "Can you hold?" And then he calls one of them the wrong name, and he sort of slightly laughs. Mitchell, I mean, that's a genuine mistake, and it works so well.
It works, absolutely works. That's what I mean. It's completely believable. Yeah. So that would, for me, that would be that.
There is one other scene actually that doesn't involve Redford, and I really enjoyed, which was with a small part, but the actor who plays it is really, really convincing. Is there's a scene where Dustin Hoffman goes to one of the the plumber's lawyer who was up to no good. I think he's called Donald Segretti, and the actor is Robert Walden, and it's out on a balcony. I think by some I think it's in DC, but by the water or something. I'm not entirely sure, but
I thought it's California, isn't it?
Oh, is it in California?
Doesn't he fly to California?
Oh, okay, all right. I must have missed the flight bit, but he's nervous. He knows he's going to jail. The investigation's going along, and the actor who plays it and the way Hoffman, the two of them are they're quite similar. They look sort of quite similar. It's just a very good scene, I thought.
There's an empathy.
There's no tension in it. It's just two actors who are just doing a good job. All right. So, but it sounds like we'll go with the in Redford's apartment.
Yes, that's good.
Oh, we are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done.
Great.
Most inaccurate scene. So this is difficult to tell because actually it's quite realistic. So
yeah, I think it is. It's hyper realistic.
I think maybe the Ned Beatty scene, or the way he sort of talks his way through, because I suspect it wasn't. She goes, him making the fake phone call and stuff like that. I don't know. Having looked at the history, they kind of get it right. I think they slightly exaggerate their role in it, but you have to, I suppose.
Do you think that would be interesting to know what Woodward and Bernstein, or as Jack Warden in a meeting calls them, Woodstein.
Woodstein, yes.
What they would think. Or they'd be like, no, yeah, it was.
Well, it's based on their book, so
yeah. Well, it's true.
They'll probably go, yeah, it's absolutely right. We did bring down the president.
Yeah.
But I think I'd probably go.
Yeah, I agree. That probably is, unless we know it's true. But I guess it is a bit of a film ploy.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the deep throat scenes are. I mean, those are supposedly true to fact,
yeah,
aren't
they are true. They were unnecessary.
Yeah, I think they seem to be a bit over the top, but if that is actually like the sort of place that they met, and he talked in riddles and all the rest,
and it's sort of a bit even more frustrating because Woodward goes, "I'm tired of your games," and he just tells him everything. It's like, you could have done this 2 hours ago.
Yeah, yeah, over dinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, we'll settle on the Ned Beatty then,
Yeah.
and then who was great, by the way. And then where are we now? Our awards: the Simon Baker Award for Best Performance. We haven't mentioned Simon Baker for a few episodes. I've forgotten, the great Simon Baker. So I think I would probably go. I don't know. It's so difficult. Robert Redford's so watchable. But then Hoffman's just incredible. So
I can't really separate the two.
I think Woodstein is a good.
I think I'm thinking again. It should be.
I would just go pick Robert Redford simply because he doesn't get enough recognition. Didn't get enough recognition because he's too good looking. No offense to Dustin Hoffman, and I feel like if you took one out. This is a very difficult thing to say, actually. If you took out Dustin Hoffman and replaced him with someone like Al Pacino,
that's who they wanted.
Who they wanted,
yes.
Yeah.
It would have been an amazing film. But if you took out Redford and put in, I don't know, someone, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. I think it would. I think Redford is the first thing I think of when I think of All the President's Men. I go, and of course, Dustin Hoffman was amazing as well. But I just think he's perfect.
I think that's fair enough.
I'll go with that.
Plus the corduroy suit.
Yeah. And he produced it. It's his baby.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Right. Best supporting. To me, I already mentioned the actor who played the Segretti guy. I thought Robert Walden, he had a very small scene, but he was so good in it. So it's between him and Robards for me.
I would put Jack Warden because I love Jack Warden. He's great. I don't know if you guys have seen Jack Warden and actually the other guy who's one above Jack Warden,
Martin
Balsam. They were both in 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Great film. And always great, perfectly cast supporting actors that always just do their job, come in, do the lines and leave, and are always spot on. And I just think Jack Warden's a great presence. But in terms of performance, I would probably, sorry, Roger, I probably would back Jason Robards.
Yeah. I mean, how many different ways can you say, where's the bloody story? It's quite a skill.
Well, he got the Oscar,
but it's also when he does, the fact that he's got this habit of putting his feet on the desk and he doesn't really even sometimes have to say anything. Yeah. Like when he's proofreading the story and then Dustin Hoffman gets a bit irate. All he does is he looks at him.
Yeah.
And shit, better shut up.
And apparently, Ben Bradley actually, was it Ben Bradley? No, I was can't remember the name. He was asked about what was it like to sort of see yourself on screen, and he said it was quite uncanny that how he seemed to have nailed his own performance.
There's a great quote from Tom Hanks, who played him obviously in The Pope. He said he met him and the first thing that Ben Bradley said to him was, "Well, you don't look like Jason Robards." This has become no one can play him apart from Jason.
Yeah. Well, we'll go with that. We'll go with that in spite of my my caveats.
I love Jason Robards. I think it was Once Upon a Time in the West. He's so good in that. Love that film. Right. Okay. And where are we now? I think we've moved on to legacy rating. And then we've got What If Tarantino had made it? So Legacy, it's a full 5 out of 5.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean it's
oh
a Watergate
god, it dominates.
Film.
Yeah, like Watergate. I don't. It contributed to the Watergate.
Yes. Okay.
Thing.
Yeah.
And it
came out so soon after the scandal.
It's the benchmark, I think, in cinema history of for the investigative film.
Yes.
It's like set up the way the investigative films should be done.
And as I think you said, Ollie, that it should almost be required viewing for journalism students, if only to sort of show them how difficult it was back in the day, and you actually had to, refer to a bank of phone books, for example, to find somebody. Yeah. But also in terms of that, that sort of probity and that seeking for truth and all of that, which I think is a little more questionable nowadays, perhaps.
I think you're right, Roger. I mean, which is depressing. Alan J. Pakula, I mean, this is probably his best film. The one he made before, The Parallax View, is very good as well.
This is one of his, they call it the Paranoid trilogy, apparently.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Klute. I don't think I've seen Klute, actually. I should watch that.
Good film.
His later work, I'm afraid, wasn't great. The Devil's Own, which is a shockingly bad IRA film with Brad Pitt.
Terrible. Yeah, really bad film.
Brad Pitt's accent in that is a complete disgrace. And
not as good as his accent in Snatch.
In Snatch, yeah, he does quite.
His accent's very good in Snatch.
Irish Traveller.
That's because it's like, well, just being comprehensible.
Yeah,
just makes it easier.
Yeah,
yeah,
very true.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So
5 out of 5.
Yeah, gets the full 5 out of 5. Now, Watergate obviously has inspired Gates. It's everything's a gate. Gate, of course. Who can forget that one? Downing Street.
Yeah. Cake Gate. Party Gate. Yeah.
It is ludicrous that Watergate has inspired.
Unbelievable.
I was actually talking to my son last night about this, and he's 25, bless him. And from our own family story, there's a thing called Fudgegate, which was an enormous row about fudge.
That's brilliant.
That was centered on him. And he sort of, you see the penny drop, and he sort of said, "So Watergate, is that why we had Fudgegate?" I said, "Yes, it was." Yes.
Who was the investigator in this tale?
Oh, I think that was my wife. Actually, my wife was the embodiment of Woodward and Bernstein.
The Woodstein, yeah.
The Woodstein, yeah.
Great stuff. All right, so let's imagine Tarantino has this. I think he would make this fantastic. He would do some, the tension in Inglourious Bastards in those two scenes, one in the cellar, one in the farmhouse.
Yeah.
I think he would do something super clever about finding names or something. Do you know when the scene where?
Yeah, I wonder what he would. I'm trying to actually think. I'd forgotten this category. There would be a hell of a lot more cursing.
Yes, that's true. Which would probably be quite, again, would hit that realism aspect, because there would have been a hell of a lot of cursing.
I've always been a bit sorry for him when it comes to, everyone thinks that we talked about this last time about the violence and guns, but I'm trying to figure out, he's never made a film where a gun has not appeared, so I don't know what he would do.
Well,
with
I
this
think
material.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if you just remove the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, true. There's
and the scenes where it's on film, i.e. there are guns where they're filming the fake film, where it's just, but there are no guns. So
no. And actually, quite a human story. I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the first time I think any male, cries. Someone always said, a friend of mine said to me years ago, actually, Owen, Ollie, Owen Brenman said, you'll never cry in a Tarantino film. But there's emotion at the end of Kill Bill when she sees her daughter for the first time. So there's human qualities.
Oh yeah,
somewhere.
I mean, in spades. I mean, not necessarily, crying, but there's definitely emotion in there. He's very good at that.
Shoshana's story in Once Upon a Time, in Inglourious Bastards, is melancholic and moving at times. So this, I'm trying to figure out, but actually it's a good question, because this is so, it's so factual, it's so
But I think he could really ramp up the tension. He's a master at that.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
It would require sort of a Hitchcockian. Hitchcock always said that tension, suspense is, two people sitting at a table talking, and then they are unaware, but the audience is aware that there's a bomb under the table with a ticking clock. That's suspense. So the thing is to make, somehow Tarantino would make something that we're aware of that maybe that the characters aren't aware of, that at any point is going to be revealed.
Yeah.
But we don't know when. And to basically hold that tension.
But in doing that, he would be straying away from the text and the story.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have that sort of documentary quality.
Which I don't. That's good because he's remaking it, and you would probably have Nixon actually on screen as well.
Yes, he probably wouldn't be able to resist that. Yeah.
And who would he get to play Nixon and Woodstein? Who are the three actors he'd pick?
If he did it today,
probably
I was going to say Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt.
And Harvey Keitel as Nixon.
As Nixon, that's a good shout.
Good stuff.
Or Tom Cruise. I know he wants to work with Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise was very close to the Brad Pitt role in
Really?
Hollywood. Yeah.
No way.
I think they were in talks.
And it's funny how you mentioned Hitchcock, but I've seen an interview with Tarantino saying he's not that into
No,
it.
I know. Sacrilege.
Yes.
Sacrilege indeed.
Except there are films that he likes of Hitchcock.
What's the latest on Tarantino, Tim? Because I know he had discarded his latest script, his 10th and final film. This is listeners, you get some updated movie news.
I don't know if anyone is familiar with podcast that they film. You can watch on YouTube with Bill Mayer.
Bill Mayer.
Bill Mayer, like Bill Mayer.
He has, I think it's one of the biggest requests is to have Tarantino back on his show. So he did, he came back. And he talks about his allegedly new script called The Movie Critic. And he said, everything online is rumor. Everything is just made up. So who knows?
Brilliant. Okay. It's still so sad that it'll be his final film, but
if that's
actually
true. But he wants to do TV and stuff, so it'll be fine.
He said he had written a TV series already.
Yeah, it's Bounty Law from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He wants to make the actual show.
I started listening to a podcast of his where he started the character DiCaprio played in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Rick Dalton, dies and he reads out his obituary, and then the podcast continued, and I found it unlistenable.
Yeah, it's that's his metaphor. That's a bit taking it to extremes.
Yeah,
his novel is brilliant though. The novel.
Yes, I've read. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys, that's your lot. Roger obviously losing interest here. So, listeners, right, we need to pick our next film now. Roger, don't worry, Cross the Vine is coming, but December.
Sorry.
Oh, it's December. Oh, it is December. Well, you thinking of something seasonal? The Grinch.
Well, not necessarily. We could do a Christmas film, couldn't we? Do we want to do
a Christmas historical Christmas film?
There isn't really a historical Christmas film unless we do one about the birth of baby Jesus.
Well, we did the Passion of the Christ already.
So... Yeah. A few films that have been bouncing around. Perhaps we could, with your help, Roger, because you've got Roger is a social media phenomenon. We could put out a choice of 3 films to do in December, and maybe some.
Yeah, let's do that.
Some people listeners. So anyone who's managed to get to the end of this podcast, well done for staying awake. And we each nominate a film to do for December. I'm going to pick a film that I put on the chat a few weeks ago, The Falklands Play, which is about the Falklands War, but from the point of view of the Margaret Thatcher and her government.
Okay.
Another
one that we talked about before. I messaged you in the summer about it because I was reading on my holidays. I was reading Heart of Darkness, so I'm going to say Apocalypse Now. Nice
one. I think I know which is going to win out of those two. Right?
Well, I was actually thinking how the rules of this podcast could be slightly stretched sometimes if we're talking Apocalypse Now, because of course Apocalypse Now is not an actual real event, but it's technically you could say a historical film. So you could bring in a lot of films if we're going
on that basis. Yeah.
My argument for this film would stand. I have it's the 4K restored version from the original film negative of The Third Man.
Oh, that's a good
Which
shout.
is amazing to look at now. And it has, and I think, Roger, you could back me up here. Ollie, you don't have to. But since it's straight after World War II, the weight of the war in Vienna has such a looming shadow over the film that I think it's it's historically apt.
I would go. I think that's a very worthy suggestion, and I'm a big fan of Graham Greene anyway. So yeah,
those are both absolutely amazing nominations, and I'm completely outgunned here. So I'm gonna remove my choice because it hasn't got a chance and reserve it for another time. I'll throw out Salvador, the Oliver Stone film.
Okay.
Which is true story based on the civil war in El Salvador in the early 80s.
Very good film.
James
Lovely.
I think that means that we need to do these 3 films no matter what, but just someone tell us which one next.
So what I'll do is I'll put it on the Aspects Twitter feed, and then Roger, if you can do your
put it out to the masses. Yeah.
Do your quote and go, and then we'll dive in as well.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Good stuff.
Fab.
Well,
lovely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, chaps.
Thanks, Ollie.
That was fun.
Thanks, Roger.
See you next time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to vote in the poll. You'll be in my good books if you go with Salvador. Voting ends the afternoon of Thursday, the 28th of December. But in the meantime, thank you and good night.